Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Casting Seeds. I'm Savannah, your host, and you are listening to part 2 of Holistic Education with my guests, Cody and Olivia. Let's get back to the show. Can I ask a question then? For people who may be anti-homeschool or anti-parents being educators, or even someone who just feels inferior to be able to educate because they're worried they won't give their kids the proper education, whether it be biblical or unbiblical education, my question is for them on their behalf, or if they see and they think and have justification, hey, I'm seeing this person, they're homeschooling their kids, and I notice that they're really far behind my kid who's in public school. What should an outsider do, or someone who feels uncomfortable about that? Where would they go and how would they face a situation like this?
So first and foremost, you mentioned that some parents feel inferior to teach their kids.
Yeah. That's like the number one, I don't want to say excuse.
No.
But I will say the parents who it's okay, that's what teachers are meant to do, or that's what the church is supposed to do.
Okay.
And to me, that is an excuse.
So yeah, fair. So my first little sort of snarky snide comment is, you want to put your kids back in the same school that made you inferior to teach them by yourself?
Oh
my gosh.
That's why I married her.
Olivia, that's a hot take right there.
When I
Jeremiah.
When I look, you guys, listen, look.
Hear me out.
You can't hear. You hear me out. My guys. Listen. No. But in all seriousness, think long term and think outside the box here. I'm saying this to you kind of in a, level with me kind of way. You really want to put your kids back in the same system, which effectively rendered you unable to teach your children. Okay, zippity doo dah, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But
most people still don't know that.
Oh my gosh. But effectively, you want to continue the cycle, to use a phrase a lot of people are using nowadays,
right?
To make your kids just as, quote unquote,
dumb,
I'm using your own words, useless as you are.
Yeah.
Really? You want to do that? And I'm not saying that all of the public school teachers are making your kids real dumb. I have a couple of friends, even family members, who are fantastic teachers, and they are Christians and they love the Lord. However, as Cody said, there is a general sway of something which will effectively, if you're a boss of a company that's a construction company and you only use certain kinds of buildings, and you have one person who hates your brutalist, super modern style, it looks like you live in a Costco type architecture, and you want to do instead a Queen Anne style or a craftsman style home. Well, the boss at some point is going to cotton on to you wanting to usurp their system, or it just won't come out as effectively, and you're going to have to use your boss's brutalist, I live in a Costco type house architecture to sell it to people, because you
have to conform.
You
basically.
have to conform. If you want to work at Crumble and all of a sudden you want to use Girl Scout cookie ingredients in your stuff, I'm sorry, you're going to have to conform to Crumble. Or
right.
If you want to work at Starbucks, I was there 7 years, don't.
So what about the parents who had the excuse of saying that they don't want to homeschool because they feel uneducated or don't have time, whatever it is, to do it? So now for the parents who see kids that are homeschooled and they have viewed parents who have not educated their kids properly, who would they report to, or could they even judge something like that? Because I've actually heard complaints of people saying I've seen a parent who is educating their child. I don't think they're educating him or her to the level they should be at, and they're way further behind than my kids in public school.
There are a few things to say there, and man, there's so much to talk about, and there's almost a choose your own adventure kind of way. I would say the first thing is just to get back to first principles. If you think that you're an inferior teacher, I'd say, do you think you're an inferior human being? If so, why? Have you been taking dominion in your own life? Have you been seeking to pursue excellence in all areas and as much as you can? Obviously, you can't be an expert of every single possible thing imaginable. But are you a person of value? Are you cultivating your mind? Are you loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength? Are you seeking to produce some kind of wisdom to pass on to your children and your children's children? then you're a teacher. You have it built in. You can pass on something to your. Now, regarding particular curriculums, I get it. Some people aren't going to be a math teacher. Some people aren't going to be able to do those things. And one, it's an opportunity for you to learn. Two, I believe in you. I believe you can do it. Three, the Lord still commands you to teach his law diligently to your children. And you do that. I mean, it says right here in Deuteronomy, when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, this is just daily life, seeking how to human well. The fact that you have a child suggests to me that you must have done something right to get to the point where you can be a parent, which means you probably own some kind of space, or you're living in some kind of space where you pay a rent. Okay, that means you have a job. That means you learn something because you're able to have gainful employment. How'd that happen? You're able to teach something. We're all able to teach because we all have experience. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're going into particular fields, like say if you need to teach Latin or something like that, obviously some people are like, I don't know anything like that. Well, one, you can teach yourself. Two, you can also, like I said before, deputize others to help you. This is why I don't think it's inherently a problem to enlist experts to help out. So,
right.
So that's why I think there is value in an educational institution that is in alignment with the telos of the universe. So you seek a place that wants to do math Christianly, that wants to do science Christianly, that wants to do economics Christianly, and is going to live in a world that is governed by God and God's law, and enlist them and say, hey, I don't have these skills, but you do. Let's team up and make this happen and make quality humans.
What you guys are saying, and Jeremiah noted this to me, which is funny because I was already thinking it and I wanted to say it, because you guys have here a list of different types of schools, which I'm going to read them really fast if that's okay. You guys have private, new Christian schools, homeschool co-ops, which is Charlotte Manson, Montessori, unschooling, classical Waldorf, eclectic. Okay. I can't read. Relaxed and mixed. And I think ultimately what you guys are saying is literally the base of the whole podcast of Casting Seeds, which I feel like we mention in every single episode. Who are you doing this for? Mm-hmm. Right? Who are you doing this for? Are you doing this for Christ? In everything that you're doing, are you walking for Christ? Are you leading your children closer to Christ? Are you trying to bring them closer to Christ in all things that you're doing, including and especially in their education, in their background? Or are you doing it for your own personal gain? And also, do you really care about your kids and what's best for them? Mm-hmm. Or are you taking a step back as a parent because it's easier for you? And just because it's easy doesn't mean it's necessarily a blessing to your family, right? As Christians, we're called to have a struggle. We're called actually to have a more difficult life, which means that we're going to have to step up in many different ways. Not saying that because I'm just going to say this, I'm not going to say Olivia and Cody are like this either, but I won't speak on your guys' behalf. I'll speak on Jeremiah and I's behalf. We don't think that people are sinful if they send their kids to public school. What we're saying is to have discernment and prayer and intimacy with the Lord on what's best for you and your family, though Jeremiah and I will probably, most likely, 100% be homeschooling our children, and our family will probably be doing life with others who homeschool their kids because we want them to be around educated, professional people who are held upright in Christ, and also they will be around more unbelievers and be able to share the gospel even at a younger age, right? So that's our goal, which I'm assuming you guys are on the same page, but I don't want to speak on behalf of you guys. So you can also correct me if you're like, Savannah, I think everything you said was stupid. Go ahead.
Well,
Cody's like, yeah, I do think it was all stupid.
Well, I mean, like I said, what I mean is let's I understand the heart of where those things are coming from, but I do want to get back to first principle. Like I said, if the telos of education is for students to come to know who God is, then everything I do, Deuteronomy 6, Ephesians 5, Colossians 3, Ephesians 6, not Ephesians 5. Ephesians 5 is the husband-wife combo, but the children-fathers section about raising your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, then the telos of children is that everything should be cultivating to them towards what is the true, the good, and the beautiful, the righteous, seeking what is good to line up in God's world. Can you do that in a government school? Yes, but the environment is actively trying to tear down your child. So
it's risky. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is it's possible, but the thing is, I wouldn't want to, if I was an Israelite, I wouldn't want to send my child to Canaanite high school to worship Baal or be surrounded by Baal worshipers. If I was in the first century Roman Empire, sending my child to Caesar University, I'd be like, ooh, now could they evangelize people there? Of course they can. Mm-hmm. The thing is my child the evangelist, or are they the thing that needs to be evangelized to?
They could be both, though. There is that opportunity. I mean, it depends on the age and if they're truly walking with Christ, right?
Yes. I also think there's this very, very famous Vodi Bakum. Was it a sermon or was it I don't know whether it was a sermon or a book or a talk he gave. Vodi Bakum is a very famous American pastor who is now a pastor in Africa at the moment, but he essentially, one of his famous quotes was, "We cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans." Where our job as parents, I think that with the advent of the public school system, you can read about the origins of the public school system in Battle for the American Mind by Pete Hegseth and David Goodwin. Fantastic book, but
we'll have it in our show notes if people want to buy it.
Highly recommend. They also don't pay me. I'm just a big fan. But what they talk about is the origin of the public school system was inherently to eradicate a church teaching from kids' lives. They truly believed, especially in their era, Dewey and all of them believed in the latter half of the 1800s that they needed a secular education, that education is purely for job preparation and also to be useful for the country. They believed that by eradicating God out of the educational system, that the nation would essentially replace him. Hun?
Yeah, well, I just want to add to that Goodwin talks about this in the book. He mentions that it's really the origin of the American public school system really boils down to an unholy alliance between three different groups. So you had the rabid secularists, the people who said we want to eradicate God from society. These are the elites. These are the university professors who really just they're pure materialists. They don't like religion at all. They teamed up, interestingly, with the social gospel Christian groups who really produced a watered down to non-existent gospel and just reduced Christianity to do nice things and make the world a nice place. Mm. So they both had a vision of,
not Christianity.
Right. Well, that's the thing. And that's a fun eschatological conversation to have. But, and these two groups teamed up with really American progressivism. You see during the progressive era of the early 1900s this desire of hey, how do we make like the best kind of America? And that sounds nice. Of course, we want to live in a good country. We want to live in a great place. The thing is, their vision for that was we're going to replace the Western Christian paideia, the Western Christian idea of that God is the sovereign Lord over all things, and He is the governor over the state. He is the governor over the church. He is king and Lord over all these spheres of life. We're going to replace it with, well, actually, America is the highest authority. America is the greatest thing. Yeah, God's there. God is he's functionally, he's blessing us because we're America. We're this shining city on a hill, which is, and again, I love America. I think it's a great thing. Yeah. The problem is, I think America during that time has fallen into the trap of Babel. In Genesis 11, you have this example of the people of Babel who make a tower. They make a structure, and Babel, it's really short, and I could totally go into detail most if you want to, but long story short.
Can people email you if they want to ask you more in-depth questions?
Sure. And we'll get to that at the end. We'll figure that out. I'm a little worried about getting my personal information out to people.
That's right. We can do like a general, like they can send it to us. That works. Of a thing.
Yes. Well, just to keep, yeah. So all that to say is, I think that you could pay lip service to God and not actually worship him. You're actually worshiping something else and using God as a magic genie to get what you want. And I think a lot of conservatives today, as much, and I would call myself a conservative, the problem is if you are a Christless conservative, who Christ is not Lord over your life, I think your conservatism uses God like a genie for your system of what you really love. You really love America.
That's like most of I call them pseudo-Christians, online Christians. Right. That's everything that you're talking about reminds me of most of the stuff that I deal with on Instagram and Facebook.
Right. Well, my frustration is, who is really God in that situation? Is God Lord of America, or is America using God for its purposes? And I think the American progressives did something very similar to that, and they teamed up with these groups to make the public education system, which said, hey, let's cultivate people into thinking that America is great. That's why you have the Pledge of Allegiance. You have really this system that just slowly, it's like a slow drip of, God is just like a genie, and then eventually, God is, we can be good without God, and eventually, we're throwing out prayer in schools, and we're throwing out Christian iconography everywhere, and next thing you know, let's just go full-blown rebellion against the Lord.
God's outie.
And here's where we are. That's why the world's the way it is.
Right.
Yeah, so just, like I said earlier, think long-term. Don't just think, okay, my kid got through high school, through college, they're 22, they have a job, that's great. Whatever education your kids receive, that's the education your grandkids will receive. Whatever kind of things that they learned, whether through their peers, whether through their teachers, etc., even the stuff that they won't tell you, you have to remember that your kids are just like you. They'll have peer pressure. You'll say, oh, they'll be a missionary. Were you the sort of kid at 15 years old who could have become a missionary? There's going to be a lot of peer pressure. Your teachers will effectively, many of them, not all, will look at your kid and say, I hold your future in my hands because I hold your grade in my hands.
Yeah.
And you will do as I say or else. And that is especially evident the younger they are. The younger your kid is, the more authority adults have over them. And that's where they really, really want to teach kids about, like I said, they want to really hammer home exactly what they want your kids to learn. And over time, they'll accept it. By the time they're 18, have they really been a missionary to the public schools, or have the public schools been a missionary to them? Have you been the kind of parent who is just afraid of everything all of their 18 years of life, or have you been slowly inoculating them against the evil in the world? Have you taught them to laugh at evil rather than quiver in fear? Or have you taught them to look at peer pressure and say, ha, that's dumb? Were you even that kind of person when you were in high school? So just a caution to for those parents who are like, well, slow your roll. My kid's going to be a missionary. Well, how have you been cultivating them to become that missionary that you think they should be in the school? Are they actually going to reach out, or is peer pressure from their friends who are chronically online all the time and quoting memes and are on TikTok and are looking at lurid, odd things on websites you didn't even know existed?
Yeah.
Is your kid the missionary, or are they the mission?
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. That's... I can't wait to actually share this with some people who made me ask those questions. So
I can't wait either.
So with everything that you guys have mentioned, because honest to God, if this was the first time I heard all this, I'd be so overwhelmed. I'd be like, where in the pickles am I going to start? I don't know what's going on here.
I'm going to use it from now on. Where in the pickles?
The kids I used to nanny loved that. They always say, what the pickles? Anyway, so for your daughter looking into the future, because obviously you guys have a strong opinion of where you would want to go and do schooling, what would you do for her? And Jeremiah and I have only ever really been around people who have done homeschools and charter schools. So that's what we've decided we wanted to do. But hearing you guys off book and now talk about it, hopefully talk about classical Christian schools. I've never even, some of the things you had listed, I had no idea existed. So I'd love to hear what on earth all of this means.
Yeah. So we had talked earlier about what's the telos of education. And there are a variety of options for parents to decide how to best do that. My frustration with the public school is just that it creates an environment that is actively trying to antagonize you from getting to that telos. So
right.
Obviously you have all these other options. Obviously there's charter school and we could talk about that too. But Olivia and I are interested in, very much so, in the classical Christian school model. So
I have no idea what that is.
So let's break it down.
But it sounds better than everything else.
Of course.
Because it has the word Christian in it and other things don't.
Right, of course. So
I'm biased. Jeremiah rolled his eyes.
So just to break that down, obviously it's a Christian school, so it has a particular mood, a particular flavor to it, which is it approaches things from a Christian worldview.
Right.
But what does it mean to be a classical Christian school?
Yeah, because there are private Christian schools.
There are, but they often just take the public school model, sprinkle some Jesus on it, like the top ramen seasoning on the noodles. So what does it mean to be a classical Christian school? Well, when you hear classical, it should make you think something old. So the idea is that throughout human history, as we do this great creation project, we learn what does it mean to be virtuous? What does it mean to be wise? What does it mean to be a person of character? Right. What's the wisdom of the world? And over time, as humans experience things, they pass on things through tradition, through learn. That's what it means to be conservative. You're conserving what is good from the past.
Well, and sanctification, right? If you're looking at that from a biblical perspective.
100%. So ideally, I'd like to think that, should the Lord tarry 10,000 years from now, I'd like to think human beings are more quality than they are now, just like I hope that they're more quality now than they were back then. Sadly, that doesn't always pan out like that. Right. But the idea is that a classical Christian education is going to look at the kind of curriculum and the kind of thinking that produced the world as we know it. What produced glory, what produced the kind of civilization that made the Declaration of Independence, that made the Constitution, that made the Magna Carta, that brought Christianity and all of its blessings to the world. What cultivated that? And that's why we got to go back to, was there wisdom in the world of the Greeks or the Romans or the British Empire? And you look at all these things through the Western tradition that has produced a world that has made the world flourish in terms of more freedom, more blessings, economic prosperity, more rights for minorities, rights for women than have ever existed in human history. What produced that? Well, it was a certain line of thinking. There was a tradition that went back. When you look at the works of the Romans and the Greeks, and they didn't have everything all worked out, and we don't have everything worked out the way it should be, but they recognized the value of human beings and what is heroism, what is glory, what is virtue. So it's really looking at Milton's Paradise Lost, or looking at the Iliad and the Odyssey and all these great works, looking at Shakespeare and the glory of literature. So classical Christian education says, what is the worldview that produced Western civilization in all of its glory? So how do we seek to get back to that? So that means we're not going to be focusing on things that you're not going to really use. Obviously, we care about math. It's not that math is useless. Math, you should know your math, but we're not going to prioritize math in as much as what's your character. Because if we can produce a kind of virtuous human being, that human being can pick up math. They can burn through a math textbook. Then I know how this works. Mm-hmm. So if we focus on cultivating just character and making quality human beings by looking to the wisdom of the past, grounded in a Christian foundation, then we can produce human beings that could master any field.
Wow. Okay. So then what would be, if you were to compare homeschool, charter school, and classical Christian education, what's the comparison between the three?
I think it comes down to expertise and resources. So forgive me, you said it was homeschool,
classical, and charter. Like, because for charter, you get funds. Can you explain like the differences of how it would work, or how if somebody's interested in one of those three, what's the differences? Not the differences necessarily of what they teach biblically, because that can vary.
You're talking about the model itself.
Yeah. What's the difference model wise, so that people can make a more educated decision from you guys.
Right. And so I'll try to quickly define, and it's really built into the names. So a charter school, the key word charter, the idea is it's still using government funds. It's still using taxpayer money, but a school has a charter. It's an arrangement and agreement with the government of this is what we're going to do. So there is a little more wiggle room, but it's still government money, so they still hold the purse strings, so they still hold a degree of that.
Right.
Additionally, if it's still my taxpayer dollars, well, why don't you just let me keep my money and I could enlist my child in a school of my choice with the money that you're taking from me anyway? Mm-hmm. Why can't I just do that? So a homeschool is what it sounds like, school at home, which you're the teacher, so it's all on you to make it work.
And the finances are also all on you?
The finances are on you as well.
Okay.
So
same as like a Christian private school then?
Yes, it's similar. So the difference is that a private school would be, I am enlisting another person. So I am using my own resources like I would in a homeschool, but now I am deputizing a group of individuals who will take my money, and in exchange, they will produce a quality educational environment to cultivate my child.
Okay.
So I'm enlisting them to help me out. So a classical Christian school model would definitely go into the private school model. And I am seeking that they would join me in cultivating my child into being a kind of mover that creates something like Western civilization.
Okay. So a classical Christian school is a type of private school then, where it's just more, is it more focused on Christ?
So it has to be a classical Christian school. There are tons of classical schools out there where they will do the same thing a classical Christian school will do. They'll focus on learning Latin in some classical schools, or they will still read some of the greats, like they'll still read Sophocles or Herodotus or, whomever. Mm-hmm. Like Cody said, the secret sauce is the Christian aspect. Mm-hmm. The thing about a classical Christian education is that it is utilizing all of the ways that a classical school would happen. So they utilize what's called the trivium, a really fancy word, which is referring to the different stages of what the kids learn. Ideally, from about 1st to 6th grade, they're learning grammar. Then in about what we would call junior high age, they're learning logic. So they're utilizing the language they learned to form certain ideas. And then rhetoric, which is now they're learning how to speak and formulate different concepts so that once they do go out into the world, they are a fully orbed human being.
Would that be similar to a Waldorf school? Because this sounds very similar.
That is a great question.
Because I know Waldorf, a lot of my friends who went to Waldorf schools, they're very costly. They're a lot more, there's a lot more emphasis on individualized education. Obviously not on Christ, but it sounds very similar to a Montessori, which to me is like the lower end, and then Waldorf is the much higher end.
Right. I would think that Waldorf is a bit more...
they're a little more liberal, I will say.
Yeah, they're a lot more... The thing about Waldorf is that it is a style of schooling where it's supposed to focus on what are your dreams and aspirations. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying it to the max, but it's not necessarily founded on, again, the classical Christian style focuses on how to become the kind of person who makes the world continuously better. It's not just, well, what is your particular dream or what is your individual style? It's, no, how can we learn from the past and how can we learn from what people have done? And how can we craft you into a person who is somebody who is of qualitatively better? Do you have anything else to add to that, hun? No? Okay. But and you also said great. Montessori. Montessori also, I think Montessori can be good. It just wants to utilize practical life skills and how to train your child into becoming a more fully functional, sort of independent, self-starter type person, which can be good. But again, it really depends on how you do it. And how, I mean, there are millions of different kinds of Montessoris out there.
Biblically and non-biblically.
Yeah. Are you going to be biblical about it? Or are you just going to be, look, my kid can
chop
onions and learn how to cook at 2 months old.
Yeah, they literally do that.
Yeah.
So then what would that look like in other states? I know we're in California. Is everything that you're talking about just only related to California? Or does this actually, and also people out of the country? Mm-hmm. Or, I don't know if you guys looked into out of the country, but we have a lot of out of country listeners.
Oh, hello.
I know. Hi to everyone in Brazil, by the way. Our first out-of-country listener. We still love you.
That's so cool. Oh, my gosh. I wish I knew how to say hi in Portuguese.
I know. One time I said hi in Spanish, and I was really embarrassed because I am And I don't know if it's the same hi.
I don't know.
I feel better that 2 educators also don't know. And also Olivia speaks Spanish with me, so that makes me feel better. Okay, sorry. So back to my question, I guess. Is it different in other states in America? Because I know this is more of an American topic that we're on.
Well, so first and foremost, you mentioned other countries. We are possibly... you
mean states?
So in other countries, we know that first and foremost, like there are a lot of different restrictions and regulations. Yeah. In Germany, homeschooling is illegal. Fun fact. And not so fun, maybe. But in other countries,
that sounds similar to the past.
Well, yeah.
Kind of matches.
There was at one point going to be oh goodness, there was a court ruling in Oregon that defined whether or not we would have homeschooling. And I forget the year and the exact case, but homeschooling was almost illegal in this country. And then one court case in Oregon, I forget the year.
You're good for something, Oregon. Congrats.
Oh, amazing. Yay. Well, in Dutch Bros, that slaps. They made it so that homeschool would not be illegal. Now, every state, as is the nature of this nation, has different rules regarding education.
Right.
I always have comments regarding whether or not the government should even have a hand in education and what it says about education. I don't think it should. That's not a role of the sword, as noted throughout Scripture. Regardless, this is the situation we're in now. How do we then live? Just so you are aware, I do have in front of me, we'll have it in the show notes, a map that is color-coded. It is on the Texas website, Texas Homeschool Law at a Glance.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. So we have the least regulated states regarding homeschool are as follows. Now, I don't know the exact number. The least regulated homeschool states are Idaho, Alaska, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Woo, yay.
And what are these again? I'm
Pops
sorry.
In the chats. These are the least regulated states in the country regarding homeschool. Missouri. Wow. Incredible. Would you look at that? The states with the most amount of regulations for homeschooling are as follows. They are Pennsylvania, New York.
Really fast. Is California on the list?
They are not. They are considered lower regulation.
Get out. Okay, sorry. Continue. I just was not expecting that.
I wasn't either. But it is, again, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania. Wow, they're all right next to each other. Gross. Yeah. Now, they also go up in moderate to low they go down from moderate to low to almost little to no. So with regards to California homeschooling, however, you would look at the website and think they should be red because red being on the Texas Homeschool Law at a Glance map. Red is the most regulated states in the country regarding homeschool laws. The California website regarding homeschooling is very long, very detailed, and they give a lot of hoops through which every parent must jump. This includes yearly giving test results to the government. This is yearly telling the government where your child is. This is informing them as to how long you are doing schooling. There are numerous different links you can click to find out what the regulations are in California. The Common Core content standards are on there, which Common Core is flexible and broad enough so that people can utilize very Marxist language to teach their kids.
So the person who sent in questions about the worried about their friends' homeschool kids, that they thought their kids were more dumb, they have to be tested all the time. They're all the time being held accountable. You don't have to worry about your friends' kids being dumb.
Yep. I would also, I don't know this person's situation. I don't know to whom they're referring. I would also say, hey, look at your kid and do what you need to do there.
Blink in the eye, baby.
Let the other person figure out how to school their child and
pray.
At the end of the day, the kid was classically educated will outrun both of you. Anyways, but
they're a little biased.
I'm totally kidding. We have just met a great.
If by bias you mean right.
I like opinionated people. I don't care.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
not offended.
The amount of classically educated kids I've met at 22 who already own homes and have families. And
okay, listen. We live in California, Olivia. Jeremiah and I come from public schools. You want to go?
I'm just saying, there's a future, guys.
Jeremiah
Look to
couldn't
them.
even hold in his laugh.
It's okay. His grace is sufficient.
Okay, well, moving on to the next question. I'd love to know, and I'm sure everyone else would. And this is probably why Jeremiah and we're using you guys for this question, because we have no idea how to afford this. Especially because the Christian education that you guys were talking about, the classical education, is considered more private. So how can a parent, especially, and with everything going up in price in California, everything is so expensive. How can a parent who can't afford private education protect their children, whether it's in a public education or in a charter education, where definitely, obviously, the government's much more involved? Are there things that anyone can do? Are we just like lamos for not having enough money? Like, what do we do at this point? Are we SOL?
Well, let's.
Are we going to be okay? That's what I need to know, Cody. Just say yes. I'm going to be okay.
Let's break that down.
Oh no.
Well, I'd say one
joking.
thing is, can you be a Christian parent and successfully get your child through a public school system?
Right.
The answer is yes, you can, but expect an uphill battle. Imagine that your child's education is actively trying to drag their soul to hell. You need to actively be involved in pushing back against that.
Education is warfare.
It is. So recognize that neutrality is a myth. Here's the thing. It's not even necessarily that your children are being taught radical LGBTQ, LMNOP, whatever ideology. It's not just that they're being taught critical race theory. It's not that they're being spoon-fed socialism. It's just that being told
As
that
if those things are small.
Yes. It's not just those things. It's just that teaching them that 2 + 2 = 4, that the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, those are true facts. But why do those things matter? Do they know that there's a God who is author over everything, and that just that slow drip of secularism, that slow drip of, yeah, you're just a cog in the machine, that slow drip of, yeah, nothing really matters, and then being surrounded by nihilistic students that are given over to pleasure each and every day?
Yeah.
That's going to be an absolute uphill battle for you. I'm not saying that there's going to be every educational situation is going to be fraught with difficulties, but if you have the option to remove those foxes from the vineyard, then why wouldn't you seek something else? So I'd say, can you? Yes. Should you? No.
Okay. So then for the people who, they don't have that option financially, is there anything encouraging that we can say to help them in any way, shape, or form? Because I feel like if I were listening to this and my kids have been in public school, I'd feel a little battered. I'm not going to lie. Or a little scared. Like, I'm like, great, I've screwed my kids over. Is there anything that any of them can do that would help them in any way, shape, or form?
They say that in investing, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. So I would say you need to check on your kids. You need to actively take a role in parenting to seek what is good. What's going on? Are they on TikTok? Who are their friends? What are they being taught? You need to take, you are called by God to raise your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Are you doing that? Are you trusting that the church is going to do that? Do you think that the 1 hour of Sunday school a week is going to be enough to combat goodness? How many hours?
They're exposed at school.
I think it's something like 16,000 hours of education between kindergarten and 12th grade. And that's not even counting the university education that they would probably receive. I would say that it's best for a parent to make this a priority, to seek what is good. If there are difficulties, your primary job as parent is to cultivate your children. They are your mission field. You need to make sure that you are using every tool in your toolbox to ensure that your children come to know the God of all creation and to walk in faithfulness with him, which is why Olivia and I, if we need to leave California in order to do it, hell yes, we will do that.
Yeah, Jeremiah and I feel the same way. Because first and foremost, you're the defender. You have God as the defender for your children and for your family. And then there's also you, right? Yep. So, and it's your accountability and responsibility to know that as a parent. And if you didn't know that going in to becoming a parent, it's not going to be easy going ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like Cody said, even jokingly, his grace is sufficient. He is going to be gracious in whatever situation of life you're hearing this. You're not going to sit there fat-faced and say, oh, God, what have I done? Oh, goodness, my kids are all... He's faithful to 1,000 generations. If you parent faithfully, then he will be also faithful to assist you, to give you the guidance and help you need. Now you need to put in the work and ask around and research. I can't speak for everybody in saying this, but how are you utilizing your finances? Are you really going to utilize your finances to go and spend it on vacation, or, which I love vacations. I think traveling is an education in and of itself.
Yeah.
But are you going to use it on something frivolous or something important? If you are starving for food, are you going to go out and buy cupcakes? Or are you going to get the essentials? And I don't mean the food pyramid essentials.
Yeah, it's about creating a cornerstone, right, for your children's future and creating that foundation that God talks about consistently.
Absolutely. There are countless resources online. We went to an education conference last year where, again, I'm referring to them because they are cheap. Kepler, they have dozens of programs online where people who are truly experts, you can utilize their expertise.
Is it Kepler.com?
Yes, Kepler.education. I'm on the website right now. They have dozens of videos for them. There are also for the different methods you would like to use. You can start going. I've seen schools begin from social media by people just coming together, pooling resources and saying, I want my kids to learn this. How can we create a group of people who are like-minded to create a school effectively? And then they have day schools and they share kids at different homes every day where someone is good at math, someone's good at this and that. But again, knowing the long-term, the legacy, what kind of human being are you crafting?
Can you read the list off for us by chance, the website list? We'll also put it in the show notes for people, but I was just wondering if you could read off the list of websites.
So this is, they have a selection for your grade level. Now, right now, that looks like they have 6 through 12, and it says lifelong learning as well.
This is under Kepler / education.
So they are separating by subject because usually by 6th grade in most of the country, they separate by subject. So this is humanities and electives, math, integrated humanities, science, languages, adult learning. You can search by subject, course, teacher, or term.
Wow.
You can subscribe. They have, they show you their teacher certifications. They show you the calendars. They show you a diploma track. They have dozens of podcasts to which you can listen. Again, I don't work for these people, but you also can look up, I think Canon Press has dozens of, if you just want to solo it.
What's Canon Press?
Press.
Is that a website as well?
Yeah. So they have dozens of homeschool materials that you can look up. They have homeschool products.
What's the website link?
It is, I'll give it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have dozens of products there for you to be able to look at in terms of curriculum, what you would like your student to learn. They have logic, Latin literature, Bible, math, history, spelling, English, and writing, and then the whole science curriculum. That's for grades 1 through 8. They have different resources, learning guides, lesson plans made for you. And they have all kinds of different resources online for if you want to do Charlotte Mason, or if you want to do perhaps a more self-guided. I know that Eclectic and, what was the other one? Mixed has, well, as the name implies, a mixed or eclectic way of doing it. If you want to borrow from one school of homeschool to another, if you want to do more Montessori mixed with classical, you certainly can. That would be like he can recite to you Herodotus.
So you can kind of mix and match your own type of curriculum.
Definitely.
That's correct for your family.
Absolutely. The world is your oyster, and we live in a country which is extremely okay with homeschooling at the moment. Like I said, there are some countries out there which make it illegal. And there's some countries which have some restrictions, but they just at least say, hey, we just want to come in there and see how you're homeschooling, what you're doing. Do you have anything to add to this at all, hun?
I think you're brilliant.
Hey, we should go out sometime.
Can I add?
You're cute.
Can I add that he's correct?
What?
I don't want to go out with you, but I would like to as friends.
I'm married. But thank you.
Thank God.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on, because I know it's a lot to go over, why you left education, why education is so important to you, because you guys never technically left it. You guys are now, you've made bold choices in how you're going to educate your daughter.
We're more involved than ever.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Ascended.
But I'm so honored and blessed. And because this is, for you guys listening, we recorded this whole episode one other time. They were our first people we ever interviewed, and Jeremiah and I bombed at interviewing. We had no idea what we were doing, so it's a blessing that they wanted to come back and do this with us, because we were so unorganized. Just a little behind the scenes, but we're so blessed and honored, honestly, to have you guys come in and also use your life struggles and things that were really, really hard in your seasons of life, even newly getting married and going through all of that. So it really is, it's such a blessing to have experienced it from afar, and also then ask in-depth questions, but then using that to educate others. That's literally the whole purpose of seasons in life. So thank you for sanctifying us through your growth. And Jeremiah and I are super honored, and we're excited to go over this and then share it with the world. If you guys have any questions, please email us at castingseeds.podcast@gmail.com, especially if you want more in-depth questions from Cody or Olivia. We will forward it to them in order to keep their privacy. And we also just want to remind you to please subscribe, share, and leave a review of our episode or any other shows that you've fallen in love with. Compare us, tell us what we did wrong, tell us we're great. We don't care. We want our honest opinion. Olivia doesn't want it, but we want it. I'm just kidding.
Please, I'm small.
But thank you guys. We love you, and we love hearing your heart for Christ. And
we love you too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys. Keep casting seeds. We hope you enjoyed learning how to cultivate God's creation from a biblical perspective. Holistic health is to prioritize whole person wellness through Christ. Like and comment on what topics we're casting seeds or casting pearls.
If you found this information provided useful, subscribe to our podcast for future updates, leave a review to help us improve, and share this episode. We would like to remind you before we leave that perfect health cannot be attained in this world.
Only spiritual salvation through sanctification and repentance to God and turning away from sin will give you a perfect body in the kingdom come. Nourish yourself in the word, in prayer, and in biblical fellowship daily.
Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our listeners for making this podcast possible.
Always praying.
Keep casting seeds.